episode of Atomic Ambition, the podcast. Now, the book that we're talking about this week is actually one of the books that inspired me, I suppose is the best way to describe this, to actually start creating this podcast and the sister newsletter publication, which you can find on LinkedIn. If you've not connected with me on LinkedIn already, please do so and subscribe to Atomic Ambition newsletter. So the newsletter and the podcast go together. So yeah, the one of the books that helped inspire me to do this podcast was this book, Michael Mosley's Just One Thing. Some of you may have heard of Michael Mosley. He's been on many television programs. He's a doctor. He was a doctor. He was a scientist. He was a TV presenter. His lifetime's ambition, I think, was to educate people on how they can become better, how they can improve by doing just one thing. Just one thing. And if we all just did one thing, doesn't matter what that thing is, we would all become better versions of ourselves. So this really was the inspiration for me sharing in this podcast one thing from each of the self-help books that I've read over the past few years. This is just one of them. Unfortunately, Michael Mosley is no longer with us. He died prematurely in 2024, so just last year, which is a real shame. His book, his podcast, his TV shows are full of things that you can do in your everyday life to be happier, healthier, better people. If you haven't read the book or listened to the podcast, I highly recommend it. Now, from this book, the one thing that I've taken away, apart from just doing one thing and sharing my one thing with you, one of the suggestions from that book, which I have definitely taken to heart, is standing up. Not sitting down at my desk typing, standing up. My chair has become redundant. I do have a chair. You can't see it, but my chair is just there. A few years back, after reading that book, also listening to his podcast, so this is quite a few years ago, one of the things I did was I decided to invest in a stand-up desk. And since I invested in a stand-up desk quite a few years ago, I have not used my chair when I'm working. I've not sat down to work ever since. All of the work that I do at my computer is stood up, like I am now, stood up. This is my working environment. I stand up to work. I think if you explore the medical advice, it's not just about standing up rather than sitting down, and the book does detail this. It's about movement. You're more likely to move if you are stood up than if you are sat down. And I don't just mean moving your mouse, I mean your whole body. Yeah, it's about movement rather than being sort of static compared to standing. Standing is better, obviously, but it's really about moving on a regular basis. So what I tend to do now, I've not really measured this, so I don't know whether I move more now I have my stand-up desk than what I used to do before my stand-up desk, but I imagine I do. Let's presume I do. I haven't got any metrics to compare against pre and post stand-up desk, but I think I move a lot more than I used to do. I'm constantly standing up, so I'm constantly sort of moving around a little bit. Sometimes have the radio on in the background. I might do a little boogie, yeah, if a good song comes on. Obviously not when I'm trying to concentrate. And yeah, I think when I had my chair between tasks, I used to find myself just remaining seated and, I don't know, scrolling social media, YouTube. Now I have the stand-up desk between tasks. I choose to move and go for a little walk. Might just be into the next room. If it's not raining and it's not cold and it's a nice day, it might just be outside the house, just into the garden, just walk around the garden for a few minutes, come back and then continue. So it's not just about standing, but I think standing and having a stand-up desk encourages more movement in general, especially for me. That's what I believe. So it is a shame about Michael Mosley. I'm going to read a couple of the other things that it says. So let me just read the back. So if you were going to do just one thing to transform your health, what would it be? So for me, it's standing and moving more on a regular basis. I should perhaps get myself a step counter to count how many steps I do, but I've never really been bothered by that. But if you don't want to stand up, here's 3 other suggestions from the back of the book. Number 1, eat beetroot. I had beetroot with my dinner today. Wow. Number 2, take a nap. Now, I don't need an invitation to go to sleep. I'm always looking for a sleep, an opportunity to sleep. Number 3, take a cold shower. That's a difficult one for most people. Take a cold shower. I do in the summer, I think. In the winter, no. But here's my just one thing from one of the books that helped to inspire my podcast. Get yourself a stand-up desk. Invest in a stand-up desk. Make your chair redundant, like I've done. I don't know why I've still got it, to be honest. Usually it has piles of paper on it, and it's storage. But I should get rid of it. Make your chair redundant. Get yourself a stand-up desk, and make sure you move more during the day. You should be healthy from it. You should feel better and feel more energized. And between tasks, just go for a little walk around your house, around your office, outside. Breathe a bit of fresh air if you can. Then walk back and continue. That's my advice for you. Enjoy. Read the book. Look up Michael Mosley online. He's got loads of YouTube and podcasts on the BBC. It's a shame he's no longer with us. I highly recommend the book, the podcasts, and stand-up desks. What can I say? Bye.